Welcome back. In this particular lab, we're going to be going in and installing the Microsoft SQL Server in our Linux VM. So what you're going to do is bring up VirtualBox and then start up dev SQL, and that will go ahead and start Fedora. And what you want to do is actually bring this video up on a phone or a tablet and then follow it along on your computer. This way you're doing it step by step as we go along, just like you did with the last lab. It'll just make it a lot easier as you just follow it as we take it step by step. So once you go in, sign in. Remember the password is welcome1. And that's going to start up. What we want to do at this point is we want to bring up the lab for this. Well, we want to bring up the assignment. We want to go into Canvas, but we want to do it in the Linux box, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up Firefox, and I'm going to log into the college portal. At my.camdencc.edu. Put in your username and then verify. All right, once we go in, what you're going to do, as I said, go into the course itself, go into Canvas, and then bring up this particular lab. Because what we're going to do is we're going to need some files within the Linux box, okay? You don't want to download them on your Windows computer because then there is a way that you could get it from your Windows box to the Linux box, but it's easier just bring up the lab in Linux and then download the files that you need from there. So once we go into Canvas, bring up the course, go into the current lab. Okay, so we have, here we go. Install SQL Server Developer on Linux. All right, so here's the two files that we're going to need. All right, one is going to be a background picture. We're going to change the background. This way it doesn't look like we work for NASA. And then here we have a script. All right, so you can see there's the down arrow here. I'm just going to click right on that down arrow. That will download it. Now for the background, you don't want to click on that because what that does is it opens it up in a different window. You want to right click on it and save the link as, okay, and it's just going to go right into download. Well, no, we don't want that. It's different this way. All right, go ahead and click on it. All right, there we go. We have the download over here. So as you can see, it's just simply a SQL Server background that we could go ahead that makes it more appropriate for the VM that we're working with. All right, so just click on Download Background, and that's going to download that. So now we have the two files that we need. At this point, if you want to, you could go ahead and close this out. I'm going to leave it open because I'm going to explain something as we go here. The first thing you want to do, and just like before, if your computer is slow in getting everything, pause the video until you get to the screen that you paused it at. All right, once the screen is there, then continue on with the video. Again, it all depends on how fast or slow. This whole process is going to be the same way as before because we're going to be downloading from the internet. We're going to be installing at the same time. So depending on your download speed, depending on processor speed, depending on all these factors that are there, you might be a little faster, you may be a little slower. So you'll have to adjust the pace of the video as you go along. All right, so we're going into the downloads folder. I brought up the file manager, okay, which is Dolphin, and go into downloads. The background that I have, I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to do a cut. What I'm going to do is move it into pictures, okay. So I'm going to click on pictures and then right click and paste the one file. Then I'm going to go back into downloads and I'm going to go into this script that we just downloaded here. RH SQL 2025. What this is a script that will take SQL Server 2025 and install it on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Remember, we don't have exactly Red Hat, but because Fedora is under the skin Red Hat, okay, Microsoft will see it as that. All right. So the first thing I have to do to be able to work with this, I have to set this as a program that I could go ahead and execute. I'm going to right click on this, go down to properties, and then under permissions, click on the permissions tab up at the top here. You'll see in the middle of the window here it has execute. And then there's a checkbox, allow executing the file as a program. So I'm going to check that off and then click OK. So once we have that set up, we can now run this as it were a program in Fedora and it'll go ahead. So what is it going to do? Well, what it's going to do, you can take a look at it. If you right click on it and let's open it with KWrite, which is kind of like a text editor. All right. You can see it's basically a batch file if you're in Windows terms. What we have here is a batch file that we're going to go in and you can see it has the prerequisites. We need a machine running Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 or above, okay, at least with 2 gigs of memory. Hopefully you have that on your virtual machine. Install SQL Server. It's going to download the server from the Red Hat repository. Okay, I don't know if you remember the last time when we first installed the VM and we went through the Welcome Center, there was one screen where it said, do you want to allow to be able to install from other repositories? Okay. And we had checked that off. Well, this is going from the Red Hat repository, but it also has to work with Microsoft. So you're working between the 2 repositories. So just to play it safe, we have it checked so that we could work with Microsoft and we could work with Red Hat. So here's the message. You'll see that there's a sudo here. Sudo is Linux terminology for it's the super user do. Okay, just like an admin. So you're logged in as yourself, but you have administrative privileges, but the only time you really use the administrative privileges is when you prefix the command that you want to do with sudo. All right? And what that does is that then makes you the administrator. It's going to, just like in Windows, you do the same thing. You have to authenticate yourself by putting in the password, and then it goes ahead and executes the command. Okay? What curl does is basically it's a download, okay? It's downloading off the internet, and it gives it the URL over here, and it tells it which files that we're looking for. So basically we're looking for the SQL Server, all right? And then it goes ahead and tells it to install the SQL Server. After that, then what we're going to do is go into the setup. Once we do the setup, at that point we're going to go in, and that's where we will choose to tell it that we want the enterprise version of developer. And it'll go ahead and download that, get that all set up for us. And then it's going to go in and set up the firewall within Linux so that we can remote into it. For SQL, we're looking at port 1433, and it's the TCP port. Okay, so what it does is it goes in and adjusts the Linux firewall so that it allows this. That way, if we have to from our Windows computer, we could then remote into here and work with the SQL server that we have installed in this particular machine. All right. Then we're going to go in. It's going to install some other things like tools that we can work with for SQL. All right, drivers that we'll need so that we can work with the database. It's going to set the path so that just like in Windows, you set your path that way, depending, you don't have to be right within that folder or that directory. You could just do it from anywhere that you happen to be, at any prompt, whether you're at the C prompt, the D prompt, whatever, you could go in because you have the path set up and it will recognize when you want to go ahead and run the SQL tools. Okay, so after we have that set up, it goes in, verifies that the service is running, and then it's going to, at the very last minute, go in with the SQL command. It's going to log in to the local host onto that server. It's going to use the SA account. Remember, when you're installing SQL on the Windows computer, by default, because it's a Windows machine, it goes with Windows authentication. Well, in Linux, we don't really have Windows authentication. You can use it. You could use Active Directory to go ahead and authenticate with Active Directory across Linux computers, but we don't have it set up that way. We don't have Active Directory set up. By default, when you're installing SQL on a Linux computer, you're installing in mixed mode, so to say. Not even mixed mode, it's just going in. You're just logging in as the SA, okay? We're using welcome1 as the password, as you could see, and the -C that you see here is just like when we are logging into SQL Server Management Studio. We're telling it to go ahead and trust the server's certificate. This way we don't need to install a third-party certificate on our computer. Just trust the certificate that's there and go with it. Then we're going to go in and we're going to tell it to select the version, to do the command with the go, and it's going to tell us. And hopefully, if all goes well, it'll say that we're running the SQL Server Developer Enterprise Edition. Okay? So basically, this is what happens. Now, where did I get this script? Well, in all honesty, I got this off of Microsoft's site. If you do a Microsoft SQL Server on Linux, okay, where we have the overview of SQL Server on Linux. If you remember the last time I showed you this page, this shows you which versions you could actually run this with. Okay, so since we're going with Red Hat, if I click on that, then what happens is it takes you step by step as far as how to install the SQL Server. What you do is copy the command, go into your terminal prompt, your command prompt, and paste it there and run that. Okay, so you just basically take each command, you're copying and pasting, copying and pasting, copying and pasting all the way through. To make it easy, what I did was basically go through these and set up the batch file so that all we have to do is one run and it goes ahead and does everything for us. Okay, so it just makes it a lot easier in that respect. But you could take a look at this if you wanted to. You could go through it, try it if you want. Again, you've got a virtual computer. You could experiment to your heart's content. Again, if you break something, it's no problem. All right. If you do remember, like the last time I said, if you copy that folder in your virtual machines, okay, you could do anything you want. Here is dev SQL. Just do a copy, and then you have a copy of it to this point before you've installed the SQL Server. So if you want to go in, you want to play around with it, you want to install other things, do it. Try it out. And then if you have to, then just get rid of this folder, rename the copy that you have, and then you're back to where you started from right before you're ready to install SQL Server. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this particular script. So I'm going to start with the application launcher, just like the start in Windows 10 or whatever. Click on that and you'll see up here there's console under the favorites. Okay, usually by default it usually goes to favorites. If not, if you see something else, click on favorites over here and then you'll see the console along there. And this is our command prompt. Okay, just open that up, and what I'm going to do is we need to go to the downloads folder where that batch file is sitting, where the script is sitting. So we're going to do a CD space downloads. Now it has to be with a capital D. Unlike Windows, in Windows you could do it all uppercase, you could do it all lowercase, you could do it mixed case, you can make it look like a ransom note if you wanted to, with all the upper and lowers all over the place. Linux is not like that. Linux is case sensitive. So downloads, when you look at the files here, downloads is capitalized with a capital D, and everything else is lowercase. Music, capital M, pictures, capital P, okay? So if you want to go to that particular directory or that folder, you need to do it, okay? CD is to change directory, space, and then we have the folder name, in this case, downloads. All right, I'm going to press enter. You'll see now that I'm in the downloads folder. In Windows, if I wanted to look to list all the files in the directory, I would do a dir. In Linux, it's ls for list. And you can see here, there's the file that we have, the rhsql 2025.sh. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and execute this script, this batch program here. To do that, I'm going to do it as the super user. So I'm going to do sudo super user do, okay? And then I have to point to that file. To point to it, it's going to be a /, which is basically the current directory where I happen to be sitting in, and then the name of that file, rhsql 2025.sh. So what I'm doing now is going in as an administrator with the sudo here, and we're going to go ahead and execute this particular batch file. Remember, we had it set as a program that we could go ahead and run. That's why we did that, so that we can do this command. All right, press enter. Now, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to warn you about using the sudo, okay? Make sure you know what you're doing. Think before you type, okay? With great power comes great responsibility. You have to be careful, all right? Because it is very easy to wipe things out if you don't know what you're doing. So it's asking for the password. What's our password? Welcome1. Type that in, and it's going to go ahead. Remember, the first thing it had to do was to start to download the programs from the repositories. I'm going to make this full screen. I'm going to maximize the window, so this way it makes it a lot easier to read what we're doing. So you could see here the progress. It's downloading. It has two files that it has to download. One is a utility that Fedora uses for SQL, and then the other one that you see here is SQL Server itself from Microsoft. All right, so once it downloaded everything, it's going in, it's running everything, it makes sure that it's downloaded, it has the fingerprint, it looks at the signatures of the file, makes sure that everything is authentic, that should be where it's coming from, and now it's in the process of installing. So as you can see, it gives you the progress bar as we go along. Once it goes ahead and installs everything, the next step is to run the setup. All right, and here we go. It said it's complete, so now here's the setup. We have to go in and choose an edition of the SQL Server. That's why I maximized this, so this way we could see what we're prompted with. All right, as you can see down here, it's telling us to enter the edition that we want. We have to put in a number from 1 to 10. And here it's giving us the options as far as what 1 to 10 actually is. 1 is the evaluation edition. Okay? It's only good for 180 days, and that's it. After that, it's going to stop working. Then we have Enterprise Developer. That's the one we want. Okay? Then there's Standard Developer. There's Express. Express, we used to use Express because Express used to be available all the time. Developer has only been available within the last few years. Developer is great because it gives you everything you need, even within the enterprise version. You can go in there, you can set permissions, all kinds of stuff. Whereas the Express, we were never able, like the last, what was that, chapter 6, where you had to go in and set up users, assign permissions, give them, you couldn't do that in Express, not the version that they used to have before. I don't know if you could do that now. But with Developer, who needs Express? Okay? It gives us everything that we need in the Enterprise Edition. So we could go in there, we can create users, we could create logins, we could do whatever we have to do. So it does make it a lot easier. All right, and then there's the Standard, which is a paid version, Enterprise, which is a paid version, Enterprise Core. I bought a license, I have to put in the key, and then there's a Standard if it's billed through Azure, Enterprise billed through Azure. Okay. So what we're doing, as I mentioned before, is option 2. We're installing the Enterprise Developer Edition. So I'm going to put my 2 in there and press Enter. All right, do you accept the license terms? And you can see that there's a yes and a no, capital Y and capital N. When it gives you that option, all you have to do is just go with the Y. Now in this case, it could be lowercase, it could be uppercase, because they will check for the case. All right, if you want to play it safe, enter a capital Y the way it shows you there. All right, it'll take either way. Now, what is the SQL Server System Administrator password? Gee, what do you think we should make it? How about welcome 1? All right, and it's going to ask you to put it in again, just to make sure. Since it doesn't show you, it does it twice to make sure that you're entering it correctly and make sure that they match. My biggest fear is always, what if I did a typo and I actually did it twice, and now when I go in, I'm not going to be able to go in because I don't know what the stupid password happens to be. That's my biggest fear all the time, when you can't see what you're typing in. All right, so here it goes. As I said before, it's setting up everything. It's going in. It's in this case now, it's setting up the tools that we need. Okay, so that we could, if we had to, we could do everything out of the command prompt. Who works with the command prompt anymore? Okay, anymore, everything is a graphical interface. So, but we have the tools installed. This way they're there. Do we accept the terms? Yes or no? Okay, I'm going to put in yes. All right, again, if you want to play it safe, you can make it all capitalized. Do you accept the terms for the license again? Yes. All right, and it puts that in. Now, this happened so fast that you didn't even see what happened. After we put in those yeses with the accept the terms for both of those, for the tools and for the drivers and everything else, it went in, it installed it. It also set our path, as we had in the script itself, And then the last thing that it was supposed to do was to go in there and check to see that the service was running. All right, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go back and bring this up again, just to go through the script. Okay, so we're all the way down here already. All right, we did all this. So here we are with the system control, status, MS SQL server. So what we're doing is we're looking at the status of the server. We want to see, is it running? Is it down? Is it up? Is it not? Has it completed successfully? And then after that, it logs in, and then we're brought to a prompt. Okay, it logged us in with the SQL command. -S is telling it the server. This is the server parameter. We're telling it it's on the local host. -U is the user. We're logging in as the SA. -P in quotes is welcome one. And then -C to take the certificate. All right. So I'm going back to the console here. You're seeing here's our SQL service. And it is running. You see that it's enabled. Everything is going. It's actively running. All right, so here's the status of our server. It's all there. Now, notice that here the prompt that I have is this 1 with a dash. I am now going to talk to the SQL server itself. I am at a SQL server prompt. Okay? So what we want to do in caps, I've got my caps lock on. I'm going to type in version, 2 @, whoops, wrong one. I'm sorry. Go all the way back. It's select, 2 @, and then version. I want to see what version we have installed of SQL Server. I want to verify that we have here the Enterprise Developer Edition. Okay, press enter. Notice now I'm at another command prompt. So what I want to do is go ahead, execute the previous command. So we have to type in the word go. Press enter. So here we have it. I have Microsoft SQL Server, okay, Enterprise Developer Edition, 64-bit on Linux, Fedora Linux KDE Plasma Desktop Edition. Perfect. Take a screenshot. We're going to click on View all the way up at the top where we have the VirtualBox window. Go down to take a screenshot. And remember, this is going to be placed on your Windows computer. It's not going to be on the Linux computer. So when you go to submit this for your assignment, you're going to have to submit the assignment through the Windows computer. Do you get my drift? All right, click on Save, and then you're set. All right, this is what you need for the assignment to get graded on. All right, now, here I am on the, notice that I'm back at the 1 with the greater than sign. We're back to the SQL prompt. To get out of this, type in the word quit in caps. That takes us out. Notice now I went from the SQL prompt, now I'm back down to the Linux prompt. Okay? To get out of this, we're finished as far as SQL is concerned. So I could go ahead and close out the console window. So to do that, I took off my caps lock. Again, remember Linux itself is case sensitive. So I have to type in the word exit, but in lowercase. If I did exit in uppercase, let me do it. It's not going to recognize it because it's going to say, where did this come from? See, command not found. Because Linux doesn't recognize, Linux, people that used to work in Linux used to be everything used to be command oriented, so you had to work at the console all the time. They didn't want to bother with uppers and lowers and all upper and all low, so they just kept everything lowercase, okay? Unless you do put something in uppercase like we did with the downloads directory, then again, you have to match the case because Linux is case sensitive. All right, so to get out of this, type the word exit in lowercase, and that takes us back. I can close this out. I can close this out. The last thing we want to do here is let's change our background. We've got SQL Server installed. You have a nice SQL background that you could use. So I'm going to right-click right on the desktop, and you'll see Desktop and Wallpaper. Click on that, and it comes up with the settings. I'm going to click on the Add button here, and I'm going to select, double-click on, or just click on the background and then click on Open. You'll see that it's now part of the list that's there. Click on that, and now what we've done is changed. Do I want to save it? Apply it. Now we have our SQL Server background. So now when I bring this up, there's no mistaking I am working with the SQL Server. All right. At this point, if you want to, you can close this out. You're finished. For all intents and purposes, you're done with the lab. So you could just click on the application launcher and do a shutdown. If you want, you can stay and just play around and experiment. But at this point, you can go ahead and do what you want to do. All right, so the next time around, what we're going to do is work with something like SQL Management Studio that we could go ahead and install so that we can actually work around with the SQL Server. Until then, though, take care, and I'll see you in the next lab.